So you are all going through the exhibit and the city things now. So if you just want to talk a wee bit about your group and your group philosophy.
Mm-hmm. I think as we started, it was very slow. Like I think everybody was just very much obviously in that situation where nobody knew what the hell was going on. I think everybody was at like a very stagnated moment. They just didn't know where to start an idea from. So it was quite loose to start with. But then within a week or so, I think the whole group came together really well, and we came up with the idea of 11 dimensions, being 11 of us in the group. And I think it was just quite because we all had very various sort of practices. So it's just looking at every sort of aspect of which all of us can bring and bringing it all together in a cohesive way. I think that's kind of like the general consensus as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I think it was like a case of we had to fit it to the like what photography is thing. So it was like we needed sort of like a prompt that would work for absolutely everyone. So I know we didn't really want to stay confined, so keeping with like the 11 dimensions thing, that definitely helped there with that.
Mm-hmm. And 11 dimensions, that stands for 11 people in the group. And what do you mean by the word dimension?
It's just the different ways in which it's all coming from. So there's different avenues, there's different doors that people can go through to kind of access a different sort of, realm of somebody's response to being isolated and whatnot.
Absolutely. And did you find that working within the group and having other people sort of being able to pressurize you or motivate you to do work, was that a good thing, or did that feel like it was stunting you in some way?
I think it was definitely helpful. It's like a bit of a push for everyone. So if you're struggling with something, need some feedback, you can easily ask people. Everyone has, although we all do photography, everyone takes that in a very different direction and stuff. So everyone has different practices. So I know that a lot of people wanted to incorporate like mixed media instead of just keeping it to traditional ideas of photography. So yeah, it definitely helps having different points of view to keep you motivated and just give you advice if you need it.
Yeah, I think because Sue made the Facebook page as well, everybody was able to post the work, so everybody kind of kept up to date with what everybody was doing. So it really helped seeing like how much work and the quality of work that everybody's been doing. So I think it definitely pushed me to like keep working.
You think you felt more pushed than you would have if you were in real life and you were in like distractions of being in Benzie or like Village Green? And
I think for me, like I'm really stubborn, and I think I'm incredibly stubborn to the point where I'm very like straightforward in what I like and what I know that I'm good at. So like this, for me, within this period of time compared to the last 2 years, I think I've done more weird stuff. That's just, I'm looking at going, what the hell is this? But it's quite fun. Like, it's just nice to not be so restrictive of my practice and just go, do you know what? I'm just going to have a bit of fun. And I'm not just going to go, right, I've never done that before, so I'm not going to do it again. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's good that there's easygoing about it. It's good that there's an easygoingness and playfulness in a very awkward time. And I think you've got that time in second year and Exhibit in the City. I think the main thing about Exhibit in the City is that you're experimenting with something new. So
yeah, I was going to say, I think it was Sue that said it was like something along the lines of, I bet you've all wished to have this much time to work on your practice. So instead of seeing it as a negative and like being held back by it, I'd sort of took myself out of it. I was like, actually, for once, I've not got like 2 jobs to think of. I've not got like keeping up a social life. It's a lot easier doing it all online. So yeah, and it's been quite nice to have all this time and then think to myself, right, actually use it.
Yeah. Do you think that you've, like I know Liam, you said that you're very stubborn. Do any of the rest of you think that you've learned anything about yourself as an artist during the isolation?
Just how much I can actually do. I think I don't know. I feel like I maybe follow a routine a little bit too much when I'm actually at university, but now it's like I'm doing things more for fun rather than to fit a brief a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually.
I mean, I've definitely had a lot less materials that I thought I'd be able to access because of lockdown, like because of the stuff that I've been doing. It's like printing and like body prints and stuff. I had this whole concept and this whole idea, but because I'm still in my student accommodation, like completely on my own, and I can't even get anything delivered, and all the shops are shut. So I've literally had to just use what I've got in. Like I've had to use like soil from a plant pot and just like ash from cigarettes and oil that I found in my mate's cupboard. It's just been a bit. I found myself to be very resourceful, I suppose.
When you have limitations, it's really good. Like I think when you have a sort of limitation and then you can adapt to that limitation instead of having all these like different opportunities. Oh, I can use the darkroom. Oh, I can use this material. Oh, I can go and use Photoshop all the time. I think you're sort of limited and you sort of can be more resourceful. I think that's quite important.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you have any working methods? Maybe Isabella, you're the most out there in terms of you don't really have a support network, whereas I have housemates and things like that. People might have their families. Is there anything that you've found is a really healthy working method?
To be honest, I've just been on like FaceTime to a lot of my mates, and I have had some form of like communication, but I don't know, it's just been like such a struggle because I know that sometimes I've kind of been in my own head because of lockdown. I've just thought, right, I just can't do this anymore. But especially with the group chats and everything, it has been really helpful, I suppose. But I don't know whether I've got a specific like method. I don't know. It has been really hard, to be fair. I feel like it's affected me more mentally and like my work method, but I don't know, especially like all the little check-ins with the group. I think it's definitely helped. But
yeah, so are you seeing art as a real creative and emotional outlet as well for yourself right now?
Yeah, definitely. Like it's because you always hear of these artists being like really expressive with what they do and just using it as kind of like a pain relief, I suppose. And I know that I think it was in one of Sue's lectures that she said do all artists have to be like depressed or like destroyed or something? And it definitely like comes from a, I don't know, like a place of pain almost, because I don't think I've ever really created any work. I don't want to say when I've been happy because that sounds so depressing, but I know if there's an emotional kind of backstory behind it, it feels a lot more relevant and a lot more emotive, I suppose. And like there's actually some kind of, I don't know, like meaning behind my work.
Yeah, no.
Because with the body prints as well, it's almost like I've been making kind of replicas of myself. So there's actually people around me. And it's been really weird, but it's almost like I've been making my own company in a way.
Yeah, I think you're definitely responding on like being alone and adapting to a space that isn't usually quite a community space. So,
yeah.
You definitely have a method, and it's a way of investigating your art practice and also yourself and like maybe your resilience in that, because it is hard to be alone in a space and changing lockdown and everything. So you definitely have adapted very resourcefully.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Absolutely. And just for everybody, is there anything other than having the group and the group chats that's been keeping you especially motivated or inspired during this time?
I think for me, like the biggest thing that comes out of all of this is kind of like just how strong people are in terms of human connection. I think this has come to like the forefront of everything with this, like across the board, but especially within like the creative sort of side of it. I think, you know, you've got artists, we've got magazines and publications making people want to engage with projects on social media. And I don't think social media has ever been more relevant and more necessary than it is right now. And I think like you did the thing with the sketches on the notebooks, and you've just got little things like that are just keeping people making stuff. And I think it's really, really good to have everybody just come together and make people have, you know, work be seen and keep continuing their practice and stuff. So for me, that's probably been the biggest inspiration throughout it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty similar as well. Just seeing everybody else, and I feel like everyone else is a little bit more willing to share their point of view and how they're feeling, because I think it's very easy to sort of slip into the idea that what you are going through is like nobody else is going through that. It's very hard to like share that. And then all of a sudden everybody's been thrown into this situation where everybody's going through a struggle, everybody's struggling to carry on with their practice, or maybe having to switch it up or something. So it's nice to know that everybody's in the same boat. And if anything, for me, I know that it's helped speaking to some of my friends that are on different courses, so like somebody from fashion, somebody from fine art. It's nice to see how they're coping with like their practices as well. That's sort of a motivation, especially with fashion. Like that's very much about networking and going out and things like that. So if I can see someone like that adapting their practice to these situations, then why can't I adapt mine?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've noticed that this year all the exhibit in the city groups are much better at Instagram and marketing themselves, and I think it's very important that you all learned how to market yourself more. And I think to show bits of it, like work in progress, like your websites look really good, all of them. So I think you've actually stepped it up in comparison. You might not have a physical show at the moment, but it's actually shown a new context to present your work. I don't know if you found that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's because before we sort of all had assigned roles. So it was like somebody's gonna take notes, somebody's gonna do this, somebody's gonna do that. And now we're in this new situation. We've all got the time to sort of do a little bit of everything. So whereas there might have been one or two people that would focus on the promotion of it and the networking, all of us can have a part in that. So it's nice to have like more people putting their time into it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, having a website as well, it just, as much as it is very weird to get used to, I think it just opens up so many different possibilities in terms of presenting something via like the digital sort of platform that you wouldn't necessarily have physically. And although me preferably, I like having things presented in person, because then there's that physical and emotional connection with the piece of work in front of you. It's still quite an interesting avenue to explore and push boundaries where you normally really couldn't do it. So
Yeah.
I think it definitely has its pros and cons, but I think it has kind of been like a blessing in disguise, in the sense that it has allowed everybody to just sit back and go, actually, what can I do? Instead of, right, I'm just going to close myself off in this box and I'm just going to live within that because it's comfy.
Yeah. I think as a whole thing, it's a really good reflective period for everybody. And normally when you're taking those reflective periods, you think that you're being selfish, but when everyone's collectively doing it and collectively suffering, it sort of feels like, oh, I'm actually allowed this time. And you can sort of get rid of that guilt of closing yourself off, which is a really interesting point. But just to round everything off, how do you feel about showing work in the new context? So a virtual exhibition, how's that going? And how do you feel about the outcome?
I think it's obviously very different, but if anything, I think it's kind of nice to have the opportunity to do an online exhibition, because it can spread further than just an exhibition in Manchester. So a lot more people can view it, maybe even as simple as family members or friends that wouldn't have been able to make it before can now make it, and then who knows who else it could reach. So I think it's just nice that it's a little bit more widespread than a physical exhibition would be.
There's an openness to it. There's like, you can diversify your audience, and it's also seeing it as not just like, it's not just Manchester, and it's not just you.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm a little bit scared that the value of like what I'm doing and how I'm presenting it is gonna go down, just because I'm thinking of doing it in a similar way as I would have done in the like actual physical exhibition, but I'm having to take photos of it and put it on the website instead. So I hope people like interact with it as well as they would in real life. But
I think they won't interact with it in the same way. I think you need to see a virtual space as a virtual space, and then you need a physical space as a standalone thing. So of course they won't be able to, like as Liam said, like emotionally connect to it as they would, but they can still have a feeling for it, and you can see more adaptation. So I think it's really important to think of that way, even when you're seeing it online events and all these exhibitions. If you're replicating something that is supposed to be physical too much, then you won't get like the outcome you want. You'll always be dissatisfied in a sense. I think just see this as a time that you can have a virtual space and a presence, and then when you're allowed to have that work presented online, like physically, you will be able to do that anyway. You can organize the same show, do a small fundraising, get a in uni even, and have it and you can have that as I did this and then I brought it there.
I mean, to be honest, we've already got some fundraising, because I still went ahead with it, not as well as lockdown, but it was kind of started before that. So we have got some funding. I'll probably take it on to next year's.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so, as a time, and then you can go to do a physical, just because you still have that work and you still have that mentality of that work. That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, if that's it, thank you so much, 11 Dimensions, for your interview.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Take it easy.
Right.